The clothing of an American mountain man during the early 19th century was a reflection of the different influences on these trappers. There was a very clear Native American influence, as they would spend a lot of time living among and trading with different tribes. You can see that reflected in my clothing with this beading on the buckskin trousers. When they would head out into the mountains, they'd be wearing a lot of clothing which a farmer, a labourer, a townsperson would be wearing day to day back east. But for example, with the footwear, when the leather shoes they were wearing wore out, they would replace them with moccasins, which were these soft deerskin shoes worn by the Native Americans, often ornately beaded. Some trappers would wear leggings and a breech clout rather than trousers. So the leggings would be two separate pieces, one for each leg, and they'd be held just beneath the knee with a garter strap. And then the breech clout was basically a loincloth. The advantage of wearing this over trousers was that you could jump out of a canoe and wade through shallow water, or you could wade into shallow water to set a trap or retrieve a trap. Remember, trapping beaver would have been a large part of what the mountain men were doing in the Rockies over the winter. So you could easily take off the leggings and then just wade in wearing your breech clout. There would be a huge variety of different materials which mountain men were wearing. It wouldn't have all been buckskins. My outfit is quite a stereotypical, but not necessarily impossible mountain man's outfit. Of course, the coonskin cap has become famous with Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, who wasn't a mountain man but was actually a long hunter back east in the 18th century, wearing caps like this. But fur caps would have been worn, not necessarily all raccoon. They would have avoided wearing beaver fur because it was just so lucrative, so valuable, so they'd be trading all of their beaver pelts. They wouldn't be making them into hats, but raccoon, fox, wolf, coyote, all of these different animals could be used to make fur hats. As you can see, this one is raccoon with a nice tail here. Not all mountain men would have been wearing fur caps. In fact, woolen knit caps and highland bonnets would have been quite common as well. In warmer months, for example, at the mountain men rendezvous in the summer, spring and summer, where they were coming together to basically get goods in return for their pelts and race horses, shoot rifles, throw tomahawks, gamble, drink. They would be wearing obviously lighter clothing than when they were trapping up in the mountains in the winter. So at that time of year they would be wearing wide-brimmed hats or even just bandanas wrapped around their heads. This heavy buckskin jacket with the fringe, which allowed rainwater to be dispersed and run off it, would have been abandoned in the summer months. Moving on to the kit which a mountain man might carry with him, I have here a rifle. The Kentucky rifle was of course famous back in the Appalachians. The rifle design was originally brought to North America by German and Swiss gunsmiths. However, as the trappers were going out further west, the rifle tended to get shorter, and you have the Plains rifle or Hawken rifle, originally flintlock and then transitioned to caplock or cap percussion, which was more reliable in damp weather like we're experiencing now. Bit of brass furniture on the buttstock there. Sometimes they'd be studded, especially with Indian trade guns. This is a patch box here, which is where the mountain man would store some of his greased parchment or cloth, which would help to make the bullet a tighter fit in the barrel, therefore improving accuracy. Mountain men would use their rifles both for hunting, to keep themselves fed, and defending themselves against hostile Indians who might not be particularly happy about them intruding on their hunting grounds. The Arikara were a particularly fearsome tribe and particularly aggressive towards the trappers of Ashley's 100, the Rocky Mountain Fur Company. So they would take with them lead, which could be melted down into bullets, or they would already have those pre-melted and moulded out, and they could store them in a possibles bag like this. You can see made of buckskin, also beaded with this turtle design, Native American turtle design. In here would be maybe a bullet mould, wadding, ammunition, stuff like that. The powder horn is what contained the mountain man's gunpowder. It was just a hollow cow horn with a wooden plug at the end, a wooden stopper. It would be worn over the shoulder on a leather strap. Along with the rifle, the mountain man might carry with him a pistol, like this Kentucky pistol, which is quite a similar design with the hexagonal barrel to the rifle here. It's not really what you'd want to be using for hunting at all, but maybe to dispatch a beaver or to use in self-defense as a last resort. This is a tomahawk, specifically a design very popular with the Native Americans in the fur trade, which is the pipe tomahawk. You can see it's got a pipe here behind the axe head, and there would be a pipe protruding from the end of the handle, and the handle itself would be hollow, so you could put tobacco in the pipe and smoke it. Some say these represent the duality of peace with the pipe and war with the axe head, and they were very much status symbols for Native American chiefs, but could have also been carried by the mountain men either to trade with the Native Americans, though mostly they'd be getting the beaver pelts from doing their own trapping, which is how they were different to, say, the Hudson's Bay Company up in British North America, Canada. They would definitely be carrying a tomahawk with them for self-defense, for cutting firewood if it was a heftier tomahawk than this. Perhaps the most crucial basic tool of a woodsman at any time is a knife. This one has a really nice handle made of deer antler. Mountain men would have carried quite substantial hunting knives for helping to process game, skin animals like beaver, and also as a last-ditch weapon for self-defense. Of course, a mountain man would also be carrying with him steel spring-loaded traps to actually harvest the beaver. These could be set in shallow water, so drowning traps, or they could be traps which crush the beaver to death. So yeah, poor beaver. The other kit which a mountain man would have with him are snowshoes. These were an indigenous technology which were adopted by European colonists in the USA and Canada. They were made of steamed or soaked ash or birch wood. The soaking and the steaming just makes it more pliable, and then the frame would be laced with string made from the hide of deer, moose or caribou, something like that, and they were shaped like a tennis racket. Narrower ones were for walking on shallower snow, and wider, more rounded ones were for deeper snow. As winter was when the beaver's pelts were thickest and most lustrous, that's when the mountain men would be doing most of their trapping. So they would have definitely needed their snowshoes. Mountain men would have a couple of pack mules to help carry their equipment and primarily their beaver pelts. In terms of shelter, a mountain man could sleep in a semi-permanent log cabin. Of course, in sub-zero conditions, you would not want to be just bivouacking or sleeping under a lean-to up in the Rocky Mountains. If a mountain man brought any food, provisions with him up into the mountains, it would have been preserved, long-lasting trail food like pemmican, which is ground up bison meat mixed with suet and sometimes berries for added nutritional value, or perhaps dried meat, smoked meat. Indian meal, which is cornmeal, some flour. Those could be used for making johnny cakes or ash cakes, which is just flour or cornmeal mixed with a bit of water and then baked on hot coals.